Feeling good, Geoffrey and Matthew, this morning?
Yeah,
Very good.
I always enjoy
Sunshine.
these days, to be honest.
Yeah. So
Fantastic. Well, both of you are in Portugal. I'm in Berlin, and so it's a little bit colder and rainier here. So that's why I put up this nice background to remind myself of Lisbon.
already having saudades. So
Saudades, exato. For those of you who don't know what saudades means, it's, that sentiment, that Portuguese, national feeling of missing Portugal. Um, it's something which you hear a lot of people talk about. It's what Fado is about, and so much more. Okay, so it's 59 minutes to 1 minute to 10 a.m. Are we live yet? I believe we are also live on YouTube. I see that, and we're being recorded. And I see 30 participants already in the room. And some will be watching us also on Facebook. We're live streaming on Facebook as well. So multiple channels, which is great. People are still coming in. And into the room.
nice to see, Chitra, that it's as popular, if not more so, than the last webinar we did. So the interest in Portugal is still very much live.
Absolutely. And many of our registrations came from the US, so they may not be watching it right now, but they will be tuning in later to watch the recording of the webinar. So I think it's, our title of Why Portugal is Trending is definitely spot on. We'll give another minute for whoever's coming into the webinar to do so, and then we'll get started with our introductions and and information. Yeah, is that all right? One
Sounds
more
good.
minute. Yeah,
Sounds good, Chitra.
because people still seem to be entering the room.
Yes, we also had a few sort of bit of feedback from the US too. So they may well be looking at the recording, which I understand will be available after this Chitra.
Yeah, it will. It will. And we'll get in touch with everyone who registered with an email with the link as well. So, not to worry. Everyone will be contacted, and everyone will be able to watch the recording. Right. I think, shall we get started with introductions and our webinar? Good morning, everyone. Once again to our webinar, Why Portugal is Still Trending. My name is Chitra Stern, and I love this title, Why Portugal is Still Trending. I've been talking about why Portugal is trending for some years now. My TEDx talk back in 2019, which is 5 years ago now, was entitled Why Portugal is Trending. And it's still being watched by people on YouTube. It's at 13,000 views. So please do have a look if you haven't seen it yet. It's now nicely divided into chapters by the algorithm. So, you can just click into whichever chapter you want to tune into. However, obviously, there have been some updates since that talk 5 years ago, which we will cover today. I'm originally Singaporean of Indian origin, and with my husband and I, my Swiss husband and I, we moved to Portugal back in 2001 from London. I'd been living in London for 12 years. I'm an engineer, chartered accountant, and an MBA, and my husband is an MBA. Our focus was pretty much on business strategy and some finance before we came here, and we came here for business opportunity back in 2001. We've been living here for 23 years, doing business in Portugal, first in the Algarve, then we moved to Lisbon, the Lisbon area, and we're still here, and we've had 4 children in the meantime. Our original plan was to stay here for 5 years, and here we are, nearly a quarter of a century later. you can find out a lot about me online, so no further talk needed. Do watch my videos, the webinars we've done before, and you'll get quite a lot of information. And I'm a Portugal fan, obviously. I'm here today with Geoffrey Graham and Matthew Krystman. Geoffrey Graham is a Portuguese lawyer, an English solicitor, and a solicitor registered with the Irish Law Society. He's got dual nationality and is the chairman of the Irish-Portugal Business Network here, and a legal advisor to the British ambassador. And he's got various other fantastic, pro bono work that he does. And he's a senior partner at Edge International Lawyers, to whom we've sent many of our buyers, and they're all very happy with the advice and the support that Edge has given them on various matters. Geoffrey himself has been living here for 25 years, so actually meets the quarter of a century mark. Looks extremely young for someone who's been around here for 25 years. So tell us the secret, Geoffrey, later. And so Matthew is a UK qualified financial advisor with a diploma in financial planning, who's been practicing for 29 years, is a member of the Personal Finance Society in the UK, and has been living in Portugal for 21 years, and has worked on the committees with AFPOP and the Royal British Club, and as part of the outreach team in conjunction with the British Embassy in 2012. I mean, what's common amongst all of us is I think we're really connected with communities as well, and we all believe in really the work that we do with the community outreach. And I've been president of EO Portugal for a couple of years. I worked on the Foreign Direct Investment Task Force pro bono for the Portuguese government for 3 years. So I love being with Geoffrey and Matthew. I've known them for many years, and it's a great pleasure to be doing this webinar with both of you this morning. So great. And Blevins Franks, sorry, Matthew represents Blevins Franks, obviously. That is a financial financial advice firm, and he'll be talking a lot about tax efficient structures and giving you lots of very relevant information in the world of wealth management. Sorry, Matthew, just focused on you and your 20 odd years here, but so shall we get started? We have 59 participants who've come in total, so that's good. And for any of you who would like to know more about each of the speakers, obviously the information will be in the description of the YouTube video, but also, connect on LinkedIn, and you'll definitely get more information. So shall we get started? I thought I'd kickstart with Geoffrey. Geoffrey, would you like to give us a quick update on Golden Visa? Golden Visa and the ITS. The Golden Visa, people say, has it ended? It hasn't ended. It's just been changed a little bit to be focused on investment in Portugal, starting companies in Portugal, and the promotion of culture. And the ITS is incentivized tax status. So, please tell us more.
Thank you, Chitra. Great to be here, and thank you for the invitation to be on the webinar with you and Matthew. So I think that the key message here is Portugal is still very much investor friendly. I'm open for business in terms of investment. Now that may well be through relocation. It could be through a property investment, or indeed it could be through some other type of investment. Now, how it facilitates this is, I suppose, the added value that the Golden Visa brings in its reshaped status is that with minimum stays of 14 days over every 2 years, and then eventually access to a passport like any of the other programs for residency after 5 years, that 5 years running from the date of the application, it means that through an investment in a collective investment fund of 500,000, through a donation of 250,000 into an improved arts and culture program, or through research activities of 500,000 investment, or indeed through providing 10 jobs or 5 jobs with a 500,000 equity investment, that's your way in effectively to the golden visa or the reshaped golden visa. So you're right, Chitra, it has very much pivoted a little towards in that investment side as to a more real estate sort of orientated investment. So that's a visa program which is available for those who are not intending to stay. For those who are intending to stay and relocate, there's a whole menu of programs available. And just a couple of those, probably the two most popular that we're seeing at the moment. Hard to say because this kind of like changes some almost on a monthly basis, are the D2 visa and the D7 visa. The D2 visa being focused on a company setup together with payment of the minimum salary monthly. And the D7 visa being focused on having sufficient passive income and together with actually having approximately anywhere between 10 to 12,000 in a Portuguese bank account. So, these are not effectively terms and conditions which are, overly onerous in any way, shape or form. They're exactly the opposite. And now the difference with the D program is it's a procedural difference. They start really in the Portuguese consulates of the country in which the individual is located. So that's really brief overview of the visa programs. Effectively, depending upon we're totally client focused, so a client will come to us and they will say, "Okay, this is what we want to do." We have an interest eventually in, for example, in obtaining a European passport after 5 years. How do we go about that? Our first question is, okay, what are you prepared to invest? And what sort of investments are you prepared to invest? And will you be relocating?
Yeah. So this is, the big discussion has been, there's been, real estate is not part of it. But honestly, I think there are so many ways to get a golden visa. I love, investing in a company, 500,000 in a company and creating 5 jobs, as well as the charitable donation of 250,000. And you actually get a residence for you, your partner, and your children who are dependent on you. Could you just expand a little bit on that? Because a lot of people are not aware of that. It's not just one person who gets the visa.
That's right. Effectively, the application, provided you make the qualified investment, is open to you and your spouse and dependents. So that makes it even more attractive, I suppose.
Yeah.
The other thing is the application process takes entirely in place here. So once you've made the investment, then we can push the buttons, if you like, necessary in order to make the application itself.
So we've had our first question come in. They would like us to address the D2 visa precisely. Could you say a bit more about the D2, please, Geoffrey?
Okay, so the D2 visa, what's actually common about all of the D visas is there needs to be need to have a rental contract and also need to have a health insurance in place. So the D2 itself will involve the setup of a Portuguese company, as I've said. So that's a Portuguese company which is constituted here. A limited company is sufficient. There are no minimum share capitals in Portugal. I mean, if you count on €1 as a minimum share capital, generally we advise clients to have a share capital which is higher than that. And then it's a payment of the minimum wage, which is €820 per month. It actually has just gone up. I think what's important to understand about the process is and this is common to all of the D visas, is the fact that initially, as I've said, this starts in the country in which the individual is located. So the application is made to via the Portuguese consulate, or indeed through a VFS or similar type service, which is an outsourced service for undertaking the visa process. And you can, in terms of time expectation, you're probably looking at about 1 to 3 months for approval of the temporary visa, depending upon the country in which the application is made. Then 3 months for the biometric appointment itself, and then 2 to 3 months for the card. So you could be 9 to 12 months already in receipt of your residency card. So that's it in a nutshell. Any other sort of further detail required? Just I understand the contacts will be provided at the end of this
Yes.
session.
So, I mean, case study would be someone wanting to start a business in Europe, let's say from India. They would get in touch with the consulate to say, I want to apply for a D2 visa. I'm going to start a business, start a company, and then, set the company up, prove that you're employing, 5 people in this case, is it, Geoffrey?
No,
And
there's a distinction here, Chitra, between the
yeah,
D2 and the Golden Visa. The
okay,
D2 visa is effectively geared towards entrepreneurs who are setting up a company. So there's no
perfect.
requirement to employ. The Golden
So
Visa, on the other hand, does require the 5 jobs and the 500,000 investment.
perfect. So uh, uh, literally to start a company and apply for the visa. Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Perfect. So that's wonderful. Hope that
Yeah.
answers your question. Another question's come up. If a person is not in Portugal, how can he, she get a rental contract?
It's easy enough to do. I mean, Chitra, we know there's a whole network of estate agents, and Matthew as well is aware of a whole network of estate agents who specialize in actually undertaking rentals. One of the things that we can facilitate as lawyers is that we can obtain a power of attorney from the client, and we can even save, or we can even enter into the contract on behalf of the client using that power of attorney. In terms of payment of advance rents, funds can be transferred to our client account, which we can then transfer to the landlord. So there are all sorts of ways to facilitate this. Obviously, the thing we can't do is we can't actually view the properties. But
Yeah.
I think you have lots of tools these days, which enable
To
that.
view and actually, I mean, um, uh, we do long-term rentals in Martinhal residences, which is in Practice Nações. This is our latest Martinhal, and for those of you who'd like to find out more about Martinhal residences, the website is there. There's another site which gives you information. We'll put it on the chat. That gives you information about the long-term rentals. That we have. They're luxury apartments, and the rentals actually include quite a few things that a rental contract normally doesn't include, like utilities and car parking space and access to pools and things like that. So we have focused on the very high end of sort of luxury rentals in a branded residences, but you can appoint someone to actually sign such a contract through a POA, as Geoffrey just said. So that is possible. Now, someone else has asked, what about the lack of appointments in certain countries, such as India and UAE? I'm not sure I'm well placed to answer that, but we can, of course, communicate this to the people we know in Tourism Portugal and in consulates. I believe that you've mentioned India. India is definitely a priority market. I'm just at IHIF in Berlin, and so much talk is going on about the growth of India. So I hope that we are able to respond to this demand by increasing the number of appointments through VFS and the consulate and the embassy in India. But I shall take your point, sir or madam, and bring it forward to the people that I know. Thank you. So moving, we'll come back to you, Geoffrey. Going to Blevins Franks and Matthew Krystman now. Matthew, would you be so kind as to give us some information about tax efficient structures and, people who want to move here at whatever stage of their lives. Can you give us some advice about what they can do and from your perspective, how this looks?
Of course, yeah. I'd say good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me on this webinar, Chitra. It's a pleasure to be here. So look, in terms of tax efficient structures, we had NHR and we've got this world post NHR. Okay. With NHR, anyone with NHR, anyone who gets in before the deadline, that you can draw down from pensions at 10% tax, and overseas investment income is actually tax free. But many people on this call or on this Zoom will be looking at a post-NHR world, okay? And the good news is that Portugal is still extremely tax efficient for those of you who are looking to retire here and living off either pension or investment income. So in terms of investment income, Portugal have a number of vehicles where they're basically capital gains tax shelters, like you get in the UK with ISAs, where you can wrap investments, where you get what we call gross roll-up of income and gains. So everything inside these capital gains tax shelters grow tax-free. And when you draw down from them, they operate on something called a first-in, first-out basis, meaning that once you are drawing down from your initial capital, it's tax-free. And once you've drawn down from your initial capital, then the growth part is taxed once you've had them for a while at a very low rate of 11.2%. So in summary, investment income is still extremely tax efficient to move to Portugal if you have investment portfolios, share portfolios with the right structure. And on the pension side, the post-NHR world of pensions depends on the type of pensions. It's complicated, and that's where it requires obviously bespoke advice. But with certain types of pensions, you can be drawing down from them in certain ways and paying even lower than the 10% NHR. So actually, with the right structuring, post-NHR world on pensions is even lower tax. So Portugal continues to be very much in that area, low tax regime. Very
good, Matthew. So, I mean, people are retiring earlier and earlier. I meet very young people, who've done well. Congratulations to them. And, they're thinking of sort of retirement and, where do they move to have a high quality of life, focus on their children. They come with a young family, and it sounds as though you can actually structure your affairs quite well and move to Portugal, Matthew. Yes, I mean, it's all in the planning. That's your point.
And as you say, it's all in the planning. The important part is to take advice before you leave your host country.
Right.
So I do meet people that come and sit down with us in our office in Cascais, and a number of areas, if they had taken advice before stepping out of their own tax, they could take advantage of, for example, unused capital gains tax allowances in the country they're living in. Certain countries offer pension commencement lump sum before leaving. These are the areas. The idea would to leave no stone unturned before leaving, so that you step into Portugal in the most suitable manner tax-wise.
Get in touch with Matthew and Geoffrey, and just like to touch upon what we've spoken about before, Geoffrey, in our last webinar, that you do have a transition period for the NHR still, and before the 31st of December this year, if you do certain things, I mean, if you qualify based on certain criteria, and if you do certain things by the end of this year, you have till 31st of March 2025. Can you just touch upon that, please?
Sure, Chitra. That's correct. If by the criteria are actually quite straightforward, not having been tax resident in Portugal in the previous 5 years and having a Portuguese address and using that to register yourself as tax resident. NHR, very brief, 10% rate of income tax on pension, as Matthew has said, 20% rate for certain salaries and self-employment income, an exemption on certain investment income, dividends, royalties, and interest. There can also be an exemption on self-employment income in certain circumstances. Capital gains tax remains the same at the 28%. Also, other than real estate, because foreign real estate income can also qualify Important to say that other than the 20%, all of the exemptions and the 10% rate on pension apply to foreign sources of income. So, on the basis that you already have a visa process in motion,
Yep.
or you actually have signed a promissory contract of purchase and sale, or indeed of a rental contract by the 31st of October of last year, a school enrollment, and certain other criteria enable you to qualify as an NHR for 2024. So the program, yes, is in a transitional phasing out, but it still is, if you have one of the criteria which enables you to apply, you can still apply as before, benefit for 10 years of either tax-free income or income at a very low rate.
No, fantastic. And I'm sure a lot of people still don't know that, which is why I encourage you to tell your friends or people you might know, anyone tuning in, that they might still qualify to do this based on things that have happened before the 31st of October last year. Do get in touch. So questions are rolling in. I'm pleased to let you both know. So what is the minimum requirement for investment for D2? We covered that, Geoffrey. Quick repeat on that, please.
You did. I mean, it's not so much an investment. It's about the company setup and the payment of the minimum salary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and more information definitely available if you talk to Geoffrey later. What is the D8 and can it be used for a resident visa?
Okay, digital nomad visa. Yeah, D8 is actually, what's interesting about the D8 is it can be used as a temporary visa, so allowing you access to multiple entry into Portugal without actually becoming a tax resident, or it actually can be used as any of the other D visas itself. So it's effectively the individual's choice about what they want to do. The temporary visa operates for 1 year. Or up to 1 year only. But you can then switch if you fulfill the criteria to one of the other normal
one of the other visas,
yeah.
A D2 or so. That just for clarification, D2. There's so many Ds. A D2 is an entrepreneur's visa.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
A D8 is the digital nomad visa.
Correct.
And the D7, does it have a nice other name?
I suppose it's more of the passive income visa, really.
Passive income visa. Yeah. So you've got income sources from abroad, and you can prove that you can live here.
Exactly.
And in fact, that is what enables you to buy a property. Many people have asked me, we have high-end luxury apartments for sale still in Martinhal residences. We're over 90% sold, but we have the top, penthouses on the top floors still for sale, a few of them. And the D7 would be the visa that people would obtain, right? I mean, for them to buy an apartment, live here on passive income. I mean,
be the most appropriate, I would say, visa.
But you could also get a D2 visa and move here and buy the apartment. I mean, that's, yeah. Or in fact, the temporary, there are multiple ways of looking at it, I suppose, Geoffrey. Yes?
Definitely. And those are some of the highlights. I think it's important for, listeners viewers to understand that, there's a whole network of visas available for individuals who wish to live in Portugal, invest in Portugal. So lots of optionality.
Optionality, fantastic. And, I covered people retiring young, and, you meet people. We also have an international school that Roman and I started. It opened in 2020 in September, against all odds. If you remember what September 2020, what was happening everywhere in the world, we were in the middle of a global pandemic. We opened with around 80 kids, and we have 615 kids now. It's a K to 12 schools, so age 3 up to 18 years of age, and we've got the first cohort of IB students about to graduate this year. They're all, actually in 2 weeks' time, their exams start. So we wish them luck and keep our fingers crossed. They've been working incredibly hard. There are around 50 students in that grade 12 class, and the teachers at ULIS, at United Lisbon, have been working incredibly hard with them. And, many of them have started getting conditional offers from universities in the UK and the US and Switzerland and, Holland. So it's pretty exciting, really, for us to see that. But, Portugal has, good infrastructure, the Algarve in Porto, in Lisbon. I'm covering the main cities that, I know, with international schools, with, uh, nice society. People are welcoming and interested in foreign cultures. And, I always say, part of the reason why I'm still here is the open, tolerant, liberal society that we live in. And people are very welcoming of us, and they love children. And one of their top priorities in Portuguese society is really, one of the top priorities is the family. So, I love living here, and it's been really great to see that that the younger people as well as older people moving still to Portugal. Okay, one more question. I have an NHR and Portuguese tax residency pending IMA appointment. I'm interested to understand tax and accountancy management as it relates to time spent in Portugal and the UK in any given tax year.
I'm happy to take over, Matthew.
Yeah.
I can take this if you want. I mean, look, with the UK and Portugal, the UK have something called the statutory residence tests. So when you leave the UK, they will look at the ties you have to the UK after leaving. These ties are available accommodation, spouse or minor children, substantive work, and an average of 90 days in the previous 2 tax years. So the more ties you have, the less days you can spend back in the UK without falling back in the UK tax net. Now, with some people, maybe they don't want to leave the UK tax net, but with some people, they need to count their days, understand their ties, because otherwise they move to Portugal and they'll find that with all this great planning, it's been undone because they've never left the UK tax net.
I think then on the Portuguese side, I think it's a little bit more, shall we say, relaxed in a way, in the sense that it is a requirement in order to stay as a Portuguese tax resident to be 183 days in Portugal or have an habitual residency in Portugal, so centre of life. In the first year of the non-habitual residency, a split tax year operates, but there's not the same rigor, should we say, in terms of day count, which the HMRC requires. For example, there's no requirement on the IRS on the annual return, income tax return, to declare the number of days that you've actually spent in Portugal. So what we say to clients is, most of our clients, they're living here, moving here. Anyway, they're spending a significant amount of their time, if not over half their time in the year here, but certainly will have their habitual residency here or centre of life here. So generally no problems there.
Okay, I'm just going to keep going down the list of questions. We have 64 participants live. I'm sorry, I made a mistake earlier. We're live streaming on YouTube, but not on Facebook. You can't do both. So I apologize, although the video, we will post it on as many channels, including LinkedIn, as possible, so that people can have access to it. Next question. The income tax is very high. Is there any way for highly qualified migrants under a blue card visa to be hired under a scheme with a better deal? The thing to say is, yes, taxes are high in Portugal. As many Americans would say, yes, Europe is more socialist, definitely, than the US, but you also get, different kind of support, for social infrastructure here in Europe. But would either of you like to take this qualified migrants under a blue card visa question?
I can say something.
Yeah.
Well, I should make a correction also. 10th of October 2023 for the real estate rental contract or promissory contract. It's the 31st of December for the visa process.
Sorry.
So
Sorry.
So no, so yeah, I would say, look, it's maybe watch this space a little bit. We have a new incentivized tax status, which is still being evolved. Potentially, it could be really interesting, having a 20% rate on professional income, together with an exemption on foreign investment income. The difficulty or the challenge, I would say, at the moment is it's a very early piece of legislation, so it hasn't been properly regulated. And at the moment, the way that it's been legislated is quite narrow. However, we would fully expect and hope that the government will eventually, in the same way that they did with the non-habitual residency program, will actually regulate this in a way which will make it very workable and attractive, we hope. So don't give up hope. I mean, I think, and just listen to, the updates that you're receiving. Certainly, I know that both Chitra and Matthew will be sort of pushing out news as well as to when this gets regulated.
Good. Next question. Does it make it easier to move to Portugal if you are married to a Portuguese citizen and want to open a company or run a company from South Africa, or have a brand of the South Africa company in Portugal, creating jobs for Portuguese citizens and creating new opportunities for them?
Wow.
Quite complex.
Yeah. I'd say yes, being married to Portuguese nationals, certainly. It can potentially make things easier because on the reunification of the family,
Yeah.
visa and indeed nationality application. I think any application on based on existing investments, it tends to be on the golden visa, the production of 5 jobs and the 500 investment in equity in a Portuguese company. That's something which, rather than looking backwards, that's looking forwards.
Yeah.
But it would seem to me that under the first piece of information that, already you'd be wanting to explore that to see the degree to which you could live here, freely under one of the under the visa programs.
And I would say if there is a business opportunity for you, I mean, as an entrepreneur, there is an opportunity for you to, bring this brand of a South African company to Portugal. I mean, you're going to do it if it makes financial sense, and there is an opportunity for you to expand this product or brand here in Portugal. Do it. I mean, we have looked at, we're helping the Atlantic Station, which is a company giving consultancy to Brazilian companies coming to Portugal, using Portugal as a springboard into Europe, for example. If there is an opportunity for you to bring this South African company to Europe and you want to do it from Lisbon, do it. I think it's fantastic. So, and I do know that the consulates in South Africa work quite well. So, please do reach out to your consulate for more information, the Portuguese consulate.
Just to echo that, Chitra, certainly we see a lot of interest from companies who are looking to springboard into Europe using Portugal as a base, and that can be very incentivized. So certainly worth exploring.
Yep. Then, with the dissolving of CEF, restructuring, and now newly elected government, do you foresee an improvement or delays in residency approval? We applied in early January. So just for our audience, CEF was Serviços Estrangeiros e Fronteiras, I mean, the border control, if you like, or whatever it's called in different countries, the Home Office in the UK, was restructured and different roles and responsibilities given to other entities. And for our sort of realm, it's IMA that deals with the residency. So, and we've had an election and we have a new government. For those of you who haven't heard, do look at news. There's the Portugal News, there's the Portugal Resident, for those of you who want to read the news in English. And there's a new thing which I've seen, which is Portugal Decoded, which is very interesting. So do reach out and get your news about Portugal online, including coverage on the new government. So Do you foresee an improvement, Geoffrey?
I think it's going to take a little bit of time, Chitra, the transition. I actually think as a fresh applicant, um, the improvement will be more easily seen and faster, because effectively you're starting with a new agency and you haven't been transferred from the previous agency onto the existing one. So I fully expect the processing to improve. However, I still believe it's going to take a little bit of time. But I think the questioner is in a much better position, having already made the application under IMA.
I'd just like to touch upon that. And it is the Portuguese government has been, for the last 23 years that I've been here, various initiatives over the years to simplify bureaucracy. I mean, they are interested in receiving foreign investment and foreign immigrants who can add value to Portuguese society and our labor market and investment. And one of the reasons why that task force was set up back in 2017, the task force that I was part of for 3 years, called Portugal In, was to help also bring down the barriers to further foreign direct investment at the time. And, it was a serious initiative. And I do believe that present government or the past government, Simplex, which is they call it, maybe for the English market, it's not a nice sounding name, but it is about decreasing bureaucracy. I see that now in licensing. They're really interested in decreasing the bureaucracy to enable more housing to be built. For developers to really get on with their developments and realization of projects. And I do believe they will have to look into this. I mean, the more of us who talk about it, with the different arms of government, the bigger chance of it, being resolved at some point. So, I think they have every interest in resolving this, Geoffrey. So,
and a couple of tag-ons there. I mean, I think that there was a huge number of golden visa applications, or were in December 2021 before the rules were changed. Those have now all been processed.
wow.
So processed, what I say is they've been validated. So that for me is significant because it will ease the administrative burden on IMA considerably. I think that's the first
Which
thing.
is amazing.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Great number. And the other thing is, your 5-year clock is ticking already from the application. So,
Which is positive. They don't make it start at the point when you actually
the card. Yeah.
The card. The 5-year clock starts before, which is very positive. Okay, what is the NHR cutoff date that Matthew mentioned? And if our golden visa is not approved by that date, is it still possible to have the NHR?
Geoffrey?
Matthew, did you mention it or did Geoffrey mention it? I think it was Geoffrey who mentioned the NHR cutoff date, maybe. But please.
I'm not, but I can say something about that.
Yeah.
Certainly. Okay, so the fact that you don't have your visa is not important. Obviously, it is important because you need your visa eventually, but we can still register you as a tax resident and then as an NHR, even though you don't have that. So what we've seen is that for individuals who qualify under the transitional program, the tax authorities are facilitating up to now the applications. So that's not something to worry about.
Okay. So I think they meant Geoffrey. So when I look back at it, the question. So then is the D visa program still of interest to foreigners? It is, I believe. I mean, I know a lot of people who are interested in the D visa. Oh, he meant the D3 visa. Sorry, they corrected whoever asked the question. D3 visa.
We haven't really seen a huge number of D3 visas. What we're seeing is, in terms of greatest numbers, we're seeing D7, D2, and D8. So that's really where most of our focus is. Yeah.
And then somebody has said, I would love for my two kids to go there. I'm assuming Portugal, or if you meant United Lisbon, that sounds great. Thank you. And yes, your kids should be joining you on any visa you take. I mean, I just want, they must have meant United Lisbon because I spoke about, yes. So, I mean, United Lisbon International School, we have founded this on the 5 pillars of what is important for the future of education. There's technology, entrepreneurship, global citizenship, the arts, and sports. And I'm very proud to say that in these last 3.5 years, or nearly 4 years, we've grown immensely also in our teaching body. We've got, 85 teaching staff who are contributing extremely positively to the community and the range of nationalities we have. We have 50 plus nationalities, in our student body, as well as if you take the student and teaching body, I think we're 55 plus nationalities, a truly international school. And, the very positive thing to say as well is that we are doubling the square meters. We're in the process of doubling the square meters of our school. A further 7,000 odd square meters is just being run in renovation, process of renovation and building, and a further 1,000 square meters of outdoor spaces, adding to the 6,500 plus square meters of outdoor facilities, which is, I think, a positive note, not just for the school. There's going to be more classrooms, more lounges, more labs, makerspace, an auditorium, a 250-seater auditorium, an indoor gym, and as I said, further outdoor play sports facilities. I mean, I think we are building / have built one of the best urban international schools in Lisbon. So do look into it. We're extremely proud. We've brought in the Duke's Education Group from the UK as a partner, education partner, as well as equity partner. And it's exciting. Things are exciting developments as far as our school is concerned. So thank you for saying that. So back to the growing list of questions, which is great. If someone gets a D2 visa, lands in Portugal, and then later wants to convert it to a golden visa being in Portugal, what is the possibility?
Anything's possible, I suppose, but we tend to discourage trying to change your visa program. I mean, obviously, it would require fulfilling one of the golden visa requirements. But I suppose the motivation for this would be actually minimum stays, because the minimum stays are
different for the golden visa.
For the golden visa, for the new visas, you're only allowed 8 months away out of any 24-month period with consecutive 6 months.
Right. I'm just going to speed up. We've got 13 minutes left, and then we can always chat a bit more at the end. About the NHR, you mentioned it's possible for the clients to have signed promissory contract until 31st of October 2023. I hope I said that correctly. What about reservations until 31st of December 2023? I heard something about it.
It's the 10th of October. Sorry, I corrected that.
10th of October. Sorry. I think I must have said that. Sorry.
No, that was my mistake. So the reservation is actually the 10th of October as well. So it's a reservation rental contract or promissory contract before that cutoff date. But look, if you want to explore that further, we can certainly have a look at the documentation that we have and see whether we believe that you qualify or not under the transitional provisions.
So please contact Geoffrey. I'm on the D8 with a lack of appointments at IMA to extend it from within the country. Is it necessary to go out of Portugal at the end of the expiration of the D8 validity?
Now that's an exam question you're giving me. So
we had a couple of those exam questions last time too, but go ahead.
Remember that it depends which D8 visa you're on. If you're on the D8 visa, which is the visa for the longer term visa, or the D8 visa, which is a temporary visa. So I need that information before replying. If it's a temporary visa, look, it's allowing multiple entries for a period of 12 months. It's unlike the other visas, which when they expire, if a card has already been issued, and this is where people are a little bit concerned regarding renewals, and they are valid until June. So we would expect that to be extended. So because of the issues with the renewals in IMA. So again, send me details of which and documentation. I can certainly give you a fuller and more an answer on which you can rely.
Perfect. Then there's Geoffrey. You mentioned some program not yet regulated where Portuguese income gets taxed at 20% and no tax on foreign income gains. Can you expand on that? Is this an alternative to NHR? It's the ITS this person is talking about.
That's right. I mean, the other one which is available, which is it's a tax exemption up to 500,000 on certain types of income, generally salary, but that's available only to individuals who've previously been tax resident in Portugal. So the sort of the incentivized tax status, I wish I could provide a little bit more flesh on it, because at the moment it's directed more towards PhDs, individuals who hold certain positions within institutions within Portugal. If you are interested, I can send you the list, which initially looks quite extensive, but unfortunately it seems to be a little bit confined to certain areas within Portuguese institutions and employment. But by all means, get in touch and I'll send you the list.
Perfect. I'm just trying to give other people also, a chance to ask questions here. If you have more questions, please do send them in. So let's see here. Thank you, Geoffrey, for your answer. Further to the question about NHR still being available for people already in the system, how can we show Centre of Life in Portugal to be eligible for the NHR? Are there specific criteria that we can fulfill to enable you to apply for us?
Okay, so and here's the difference with a lot of other jurisdictions, is that the declaration of becoming being tax resident in Portugal, which we would do on your behalf using a power of attorney, that's taken at face value effectively. So as long as you have an address in Portugal, then we can utilize that, and provided you comply under one of the transitional provisions, we can register you as a tax resident. It's not required for us to demonstrate to the tax authorities that you have a centre of life here. Yeah. Subsequent to that, the tax rules and the split tax year will operate, as I said, within that in 2024. So if you make the application on the 1st of June, then you will declare your worldwide income for the period 1st of June 2024 to 31st of December in 2025. That's the way it works. Thereafter, you have to comply with the 183-day or Centre of Life test. But again, as Matthew also has indicated, it's not something which is cross-examined in the same way as the HMRC, for example, would in the UK, or indeed the IRS would in the US.
Okay, so then long question, another exam question potentially. The Portuguese Parliament passed amendments on March 5th to the Portuguese Nationality Law, Organic Law 1/2024, which will effectively streamline the process of acquiring Portuguese citizenship. Under the new law, Portugal residents, including D1, D3, D7, D8, and Golden Visa holders, can now start their residency clock from the time when the request for temporary residency authorization is considered, provided the application is ultimately approved. The question is whether this law is in force and in effect already, or is it yet to be signed by the President of Portugal, and will it get in force and effect thereafter?
It has come into force, so that's something which is is now active.
Good. It wasn't it was just, I was like, there's a lot of information there. I thought it might be an exam question. Okay. Q for Matthew. What are the key questions, considerations to ask from a tax perspective before making the move to Portugal?
That's a great question. I mean, it depends if you're working or not. So for working people, they need to see the tax regime that they come under once they've spoken to Geoffrey and looked at the visa requirements and the requirements to live here. Then the tax regime, they need to look at really if they're setting themselves up individually or as a company, how that works, and questions for themselves in terms of if they're retired, is looking at their sources of income to provide for their living costs. Is it pensions? Is it investments? Is it a mixture of it? Is it drawing down from maybe a non-Portuguese company and still getting the tax-free element if they get into NHR? So
Yeah.
there are many key considerations, but I think the starting point is, once you know you can get your right visa, is to look at your income streams, and then work out the most tax-efficient ways of drawing down from them.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. So I'm employed by UK employer part-time, spending time between the UK and Portugal under PAYE. Can you help me be tax efficient, leveraging my NHR status and evaluating my status under the statutory residency test? Matthew, can your firm help me?
We can. So we can advise on the statutory residence tests as part of Blevins Franks. I'm part of the financial planning team. Okay, so my
Perfect.
work is around personal tax, personal investments, and also succession planning, which is the whole passing assets through generations. But we have part of our offering is our tax advisory service team, which is a step qualified tax advisors. They're cross border. We can evaluate that. Yeah.
Okay. If you actually go to IMSF, there's a lot. Their comment is, nothing has really changed. Huge lines and processes backed up. I mean, listen, all these residency programs were so popular over the last few years. There are lots of processes there. It's a positive thing. All I can tell you is that things will get processed. I mean, Geoffrey, would you like to just say a couple of things on that?
Yeah, I hope I can. I think the first thing is going to an IMA or formerly CEF office, you're going to get a very different impression as to what actually happens behind the scenes, so to speak. So there's always an element of those offices will always be busy, not least because for example, Portugal was very understanding and opened applications for Ukrainians, for example. In relation to, which actually has ended up, I suppose, backing up some of the processes. However, on the behind the scenes, we have to transmit that feedback. Our firm is transmitting that feedback, and similar type feedback that we're getting from the clients of the frustrations for the length of time that some of these applications are taking. So I think what the Portuguese government has been doing habitually is attempting to, for example, extend the deadlines for validity for existing residence permits. But I think all we can continue to do is to transmit those frustrations back to the authorities themselves, and I think that eventually things will get better.
Yeah,
so
it's a question of time, and I'm sure okay, so I'm sure it will get better. So please do put some light on the new law applicable from April 1st. How much is it effective? Geoffrey, I'm assuming it's talking about, I mean, you've answered that question, haven't you? Which law? I'm assuming it's the law you spoke about, the
residency, actually the nationality law.
Nationality, yeah.
Nationality law, I'm assuming.
So it's in effect already.
Yes.
Yeah. So under D7, can I ask for reunification with my family only once I've obtained the residency card, say 9 to 12 months after the application, or right from the first application?
Be better to do it from the first application itself. But again, let's have a look at your process, and we can
advise you properly. Yeah. So please do reach out to Geoffrey. Can you tell us more about the digital nomad program?
Yeah, I mean, the digital nomad program itself it's a good program. We have a few clients who are already on it. It's really about showing that you have sufficient, you have a foreign contract of employment or consultancy agreement, and that it actually pays approximately 280 euros per month. And that allows you into the digital nomad program, whether that be as a temporary visa allowing multiple entries over up to a 12-month period, or indeed a visa which is running along the more typical tramlines of the other D visas itself. So the requirements are there does need to be approval of the project by one of the startup incubators, and that's an online application process. But we can assist with each one of those aspects of the application itself. So do get in touch.
Thank you. And for Matthew, can you change your status after arriving, coming in on golden visa, but still working, then retire?
That's not a question for me. That's for Geoffrey. Sorry, we don't do the immigration side. Sorry.
I think the golden visa it's about minimum stays 14 days over a 2-year period. If you want to live here, that's not a problem. It also facilitates that. I suppose the beauty of the golden visa for many of the early adopters and indeed late adopters was the fact that they could actually access a visa program and also nationality with these minimum stays. But sure, if you want to sort of stay, work here, it's no obstruction to having the golden visa. In fact, it very much facilitates it.
Great. Sorry, I mean, it said a question for Matthew. That's why
No
I said
problem.
Matthew. But
we don't.
yeah.
Sorry, we don't do immigration.
No problem. So, okay. I mean, there are no more live questions there. Thank you all for coming in. Coming in with your questions. There's more information on edge-il.com and blevinsfranks.com, martinhalresidences.com, United Lisbon .school, and what other businesses do we? We have longtermrentalsportugal.com, which has some information on long-term rentals. And there's other sites which have been talked about, but these were the main sites, I think. Please do tune in to our next webinar. We are trying to make these webinars relevant. We're collating all the information that we've talked about, and then we discuss what the topics and themes should be. Matthew, would you like to have quick elevator pitch on what Blevins can do before we end the webinar, and then we'll go to Geoffrey, and I'll say a few words, and then we'll come to the end.
Okay, thank you, Chitra. Yeah, so quick elevator pitch. Blevins Franks have been in Portugal for 49 years. We work in 7 countries. We have an office in London, so we're both sides of the Brexit divide. We're licensed and regulated in the UK, and we have a European license. We have offices in Portugal, France, Spain, Monaco, Cyprus, Malta. So yeah, we are pan-European. But in terms of what we do, we call it the 4 pillars of financial planning. So it's cross-border tax planning, cross-border investment planning, cross-border pension planning, and something we didn't touch upon today, which I just want to add, is the succession planning side, the estate planning. It's passing assets through generations. Portugal has no inheritance tax. So people are coming from jurisdictions with very high inheritance tax. If there's work around what we call the domicile, but there is the ability to live in Portugal long term and leave assets to your children with no inheritance tax free. Portugal does have stamp duty on inheritance at 10%, but that's not to direct family members such as children and grandchildren. So just as one point to leave everyone is that it is highly tax efficient to pass wealth through generations if you're going to retire long term in Portugal. So don't forget that. Okay.
Fabulous. Geoffrey, thank you.
Okay, so Edge, as we've been doing this for over 30 years, looking after international clients who are investing in Portugal. Our reach is genuinely global. We used to be quite sort of UK then European centric, but now we have literally clients all over the world. We service those clients from 3 offices in Portugal, here in Lisbon, our HQ, and also in Porto and the Algarve. We're a full service law firm. So I suppose what we're able to do is accompany the client in that journey when that begins and touches into Portugal, whether that be an individual, for example, who's only buying a property here, or indeed someone who's actually relocating or setting up a company. So because of our full service nature, we're able to support those clients in whatever aspect that they involve themselves in Portugal and need legal advice. So I suppose that's it in a nutshell. Thank you, Chitra.
No, thank you. And for us, Martinhal, we have 4 hotels and resorts in Portugal. We've been in business here a long time. We also have branded residences that we still have a few to sell, very high-end luxury. Martinhal Lisbon Orient opened last year in June, and is a fabulous place now. Come and check out our restaurant at least, even if you're not interested in buying a property. But we have a fabulous restaurant. The Sunday brunches are great, and the United Lisbon International School is part of the EduHub of Lisbon. So apart from the international school, we're building out a very interesting ecosystem for innovation and education. We'll have apartments for the IB boarding in the future, as well as teachers at our international school looking for accommodation, as well as young professionals who'll be working in one of the areas that we will have at the Edu Hub. So, I mean, it's a complex project. I can't quite, do an elevator pitch without showing you imagery, but do check us out on eduhublisbon.com. Sorry, that is one more website to check out. Ooh, and I see that a few more questions have popped up. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, now that the official hour is over, are you still willing to answer some of these questions?
We were off the hook, Chitra. No, so
thought we were off the hook, but it's okay. Can you pause your NHR and then pick it up back up where you paused it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just do quick fire round here. Any suggestion to optimize the tax amounts?
What do you mean by that?
I don't know, but I suggest they get in touch with both of you with that question. Optimizing tax amounts. I guess it's amounts of
tax optimization. Yeah, that's
you did, Martha,
to work with that. Yes, but
yes,
need to know more about it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's still coming in. They're still engaged. How long can you pause it for?
Okay, so the clock continues to run. So effectively, you can pause it as long as that clock is still valid and able to be restarted. That's it.
Right. I think we have to end it there. Thank you all very much for attending. And Matthew and Geoffrey, thank you so much for being part of this.
Pleasure.
Thanks to Matthew of Blevins Franks and Geoffrey of Edge. I mean, if you look at the combined number of years that of experience that just the people on this webinar cover, it's coming up to 70 years, I believe, in Portugal in total. But if you look at the number of years that Blevins Franks has been around, and Edge International Lawyers has been around, I mean, their combined knowledge and expertise, of the firms is huge, everyone. So please do reach out to them and do come to us, Martinhal or United Lisbon International School or EduHub Lisbon if you're interested in any of the things we're doing. Thank you all very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.